Welcome back to the Chronicles of Dragonlance podcast, where we go book by book and delve into the stories and the history of this beloved saga. Hello, companions, and welcome back to the Chronicles of Dragonlance podcast. I'm Jonathan Howard, and with me, as always, is Shivam Bhatt.
Hello.
And today, we're taking up Chapter 10 in the Dragons of Autumn Twilight. Last time, we left our party of heroes at the edges of the mysterious and dangerous Darken Wood, and today we join them as they follow the White Stag into those woods.
This is a very pivotal chapter in the book, actually. In this chapter and the chapter that follows it, we are given a lot of foreshadowing as to the nature of the saga in general. And by saga, I mean like the Chronicles. And it sets up a lot of the kind of underlying philosophy of the books. It sets up a lot of the hidden ideology that Tracy Hickman has put in here. And more importantly, it also gives the companions like a quest. They've had this quest. I mean, the dragon armies are around. They've discovered the staff and this. They've got things, but this time they have a direction. So as we open this chapter here, the companions are starting to head into Darken Wood proper. It's really creepy because at the end of it, they were climbing up, Prayer's Eye Peak. They're going through the woods. They're trying to run away from the Draconians. And the first thing they feel is like, wow, phew, we're here. We're in Darken Wood, but at least the Draconians are gone. And the first thing they notice, though, is like, this place feels alive compared to the last woods. They hear animals and bugs and everything. It feels very vibrant. It feels very active. And the hush that was there earlier seems to be gone. So like all the companions kind of relax, except for Raceland. Because Raceland, of course, being the Magi, is totally in tune with the Arcana and totally in tune with the world that's going on here. And he is not having any part of this. Like, hey, guys, we're going into one of the most haunted places that we know of. You should maybe not be quite so nonchalant about this.
I was ready for spooky story interlude, right?
Yeah.
I was expecting this kind of forest that we see in movies or we read about in other scary books.
Very Hobbit-esque, right? Like they go into the deep, dark, silent woods and crazy, creepy things are going on.
Yeah, and it was going to be dark and there would be cobwebs or, impenetrable, deep, dark forests. And it's like, no, this is the most forest of all forests. And they feel relaxed in it. It's the opposite, except for, as you said, Raceland.
Yeah. So it's like one thing that I always enjoyed about this is that it definitely calls back to Margaret and Tracy's biggest inspiration being the Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, because Tasselhoff pulls out a map of elven design, and written across the forest in flowing script were the words Darken Woods, which is exactly like, the map that Bilbo and friends use in The Hobbit to try to get to the last lonely mountain. It was very much an homage to their hero. It was pretty cool.
Yeah. Travel is uneventful. They've heeded the warnings of Raceland. They travel quickly.
Or if we're using the old D&D version of this game that they were playing, they went through and rolled no random encounters.
Night approaches. The party starts to tire. Tanis, looking at the map you mentioned, kind of thinks like, hey, maybe we're not even in Darken Woods. The labeling's not super great on this. Maybe everything's great. And they come upon a glade. There's fresh water. Raceland tells them not to leave the path.
Mm-hmm.
He's still paranoid, but they ignore him. They're like, nothing has happened. I don't know what the ghost stories are about, but we're going to set up camp. So they all set up camp.
And Raceland is like...
But Raceland stays on the path.
Yeah, Raceland's like, you're all fools. This is Darken Wood, as you'll see before the night's ended. But as you say, I need rest. However, I will not leave the path. And so he just sat down on the trail, and Carawan's, of course, embarrassed by his crazy, creepy brother. And he's like, oh, Race, come on. Taz can gone for wood, and maybe I can go shoot a rabbit. And Raceland's like, oh, hell no. Raceland actually spoke above a whisper, making everyone start. He's like, shoot nothing, harm nothing in Darken Wood. Neither plant nor tree nor animal, nothing. There's a big deal here. You don't mess with this at all.
Tasselhoff comes back. He's gathered wood, and he makes clear to Raceland and everyone else that he didn't cut any of the wood. He didn't hurt any trees. He just picked up stuff. Tries to start a fire, but it doesn't start.
Yep, the wood's soaking wet or damp or green or something. It's too alive to be burned. That's another thing you should be noticing here. Even the wood that they're gathering that's fallen is too alive to be given to the fire. But the companions are like, yo, it's dark. We do need light. And now Flint is getting uneasy. Now the elves are getting uneasy. Everybody's kind of being like, we're in Darken Wood and it's dark. And Rayson's like, oh, now now you care, huh?
Now it's kind of a spooky wood.
Yeah. And Flint is like super defensive, and he's like, no, man, I just don't want the Kender to steal my stuff. And Rayson's like, all right, if you say so. He just goes and says Shirak, which is like lighting the orb on the staff of Magus that he carries. It's a ghostly light. It casts like a pale white light for 30 feet around him in a big circle. And he's like, there, you have light now. And he thrusts the bottom of the staff into the wet ground, and he just kind of stands up. And this is like one of the most iconic things in the saga. Raistlin, the staff of Magus, and casting light by saying Shirak. It's funny because I was talking to some friends of mine, long-term Dragonlance fans, and I was talking to Margaret Weiss and stuff, and we were noting that Margaret asked, hey, what does the Staff of Magus actually do? And I'm like, well, as far as we can tell, after 250 books or so, it makes light. like I'm sure it does other things. I'm sure it makes like more powerful spells. It kind of let them float once in a while. But as far as you guys have ever written, thing's a really, really fancy flashlight. Yeah. Like the Coleman lantern could probably be a lot easier to handle.
Is Shiraka, is that fake Elvish, or is that...
So one of the neat things about the magic in Dragonlance is, so Trace Hickman, of course, being a Mormon, went on mission just like many Mormons do. And he went on mission to Indonesia. And one of the things he picked up in Indonesia was the language there. He learned to speak Bahasa Indonesian. And using it, he made the magic system of Dragonlance. All the spell words, all the verbal components you hear in the entire saga come from Indonesian originally. So Shirak, of course, just means light. And Dumak, the opposite, means dark. I mean, it's convenient. Like, that's cool. I dig it.
Yeah.
I'm down with it. Of course, they eventually later changed it to Dulak, and then they just kind of were like, wait, which way is it supposed to be? And then everybody just decided Dulak is the way, and that just became the consistent thing to do.
Question, when has Dragonlance ever been translated into Indonesian?
And
if so, did they keep the word for light? Does he just say light in those, or did they change it to like Latin or some other language that maybe Indonesians aren't familiar with?
I don't think it's ever been translated into Bahasa Indonesia.
Okay.
Because I know I've bought Dragonlance books in Southeast Asia before, but they were in English.
Got it. Okay.
It's just one of those like, so I don't know. It's kind of cool. But the weird thing is though, like at first they use like pseudo fakish Indonesian to do this sort of spell stuff, and then later on in like when they come back in the later Dragonlance books and have to write spell things, they start writing like full on like actual sentences in Indonesian. And I think it's because they were like, oh, we used Indonesian inspiration. Okay, well, we should just use straight Indonesian instead of making it a little fakey.
Huh.
That's one of the things that always just kind of like irritated me, but like mildly, like, okay, you're trying a little.
It's kind of what people have done for a long time, right? Like Latin is usually the go-to magic language for a lot of...
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And most of the Latin is also, it's not real Latin. It's
very much just like Lumos.
Yeah, it's bad Latin, or it's, late Latin.
Or just random words thrown together.
Or it's not Latin at all, right? It's someone with a Latin English dictionary, but doesn't understand that you have to, conjugate nouns and decline verbs and
how the word endings work.
Yeah.
No, I mean, in Dragonlance later on, Chris Pearson writes the King Priest of Istar novels that came out very near the end of the saga. And Istar, of course, being the Rome analog here for the Catholic Church analog. But he didn't want to use Latin because that's such a cliche language everything else used. So he used Ostian, which is another forgotten, like, dead language from Italy.
Mm-hmm.
So the language, when you're reading it, feels like fake enough Latin, but it's not Latin. So you're like, oh, so that makes it like one step extra fantasy. I appreciate them going to a well that is not the same generic Greek Latin stuff that we normally get. I think it's pretty inspired and has made it very memorable.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess we should try to get back to the story.
It's Dragonlance. Story meanders as well.
So the light, it's interesting. She comments, or they comment in the book that even you said it's like a 30 foot radius light. And they say it seems to have made the darks darker.
Yes.
And Tanis notices that he does not have his night vision.
Yeah,
his elven vision.
Well, I mean, I guess they call it dark vision now, but one of the weird things is that elves in D&D have changed the way they can look over the past 3, 4, 5 editions of the game. Like originally they would see things highlighted in the kind of this reddish outline, like sort of like infrared. And then they became like low light vision. You can see basically like it's, like it's daylight, but it's just darker. And then they turn into dark vision. You see everything in black and white. In any case, however Tanis is supposed to see things, he looks and he realizes, I can't see anything outside of our little pool of light.
They set a watch. Sturm and Tanis go first. Everyone settles down to sleep. Randomly, there's this strangled cry. Everyone jumps up. They draw their weapons. Raceland says he doesn't move. He's like, your weapons aren't going to do any good here.
Yeah. Yeah, because suddenly an army of warriors surrounds him out of nowhere, out of the middle of the woods here. As the book says, that alone would have been enough to chill anyone's blood, but the companions could have dealt with that. What they couldn't handle was the horror that overwhelmed and numbed their senses. Each one of them recalled Karamon's flippant comment, I'll fight the living any day of the week, but not the dead. These warriors were dead. Whoops. Saw that one coming.
A quote I like, it says, nothing more than fleeting, fragile white light outlined their bodies. It was as if the human warmth that had been theirs while they lived lingered on horribly after death. The flesh had rotted away, leaving behind the body's image as remembered by the soul.
Oh, that's such a evocative line. Wow, that's so good.
This is not unique to Mormonism. It is basic Christian doctrine, but that's pretty much just describing how Christianity imagines how the body and the soul interact anyway, right? Multiple times in Sunday school, we talked about, how does the soul relate to a body? And it was often described just in this as that, a body is kind of like clothes for a soul.
Yes.
And just like your clothes, they kind of fit you sometimes and they kind of don't. It's like an imperfect thing. So our bodies are an imperfect image of our soul. And this is kind of like this weird reverse, right? Like, it's like, no, your soul is this misremembered match of a body.
Yeah. It's funny, like the idea of the soul is, the body is clothing for the soul is very much Hindu doctrine. But yeah, like the way undead are described in this book especially is that these are things like in Dragonlance, there's a whole theology of like the passage of souls and the river of souls that goes forward and future and stuff. Because Tracy took a very big inspiration from the Pearl of Great Price, the Mormon textbook. But in this, you get the feeling that these are restless bodies. These are people who wear ancient armor that they're stuck with, that they want to progress, but they can't. They're still stuck here for some reason, because these are not just like your run-of-the-mill zombies. These are spectral minions. Spectral minions are effectively this idea of these are undead that are spirits of men who gave their pledge to perform some task. They failed at that pledge, and it's their doom to keep performing the same task over and over until they win their release and find their true rest in death. This is a Tracy Hickman original, which is different from, again, how Tracy wanted to create Dragonlance to be different than normal D&D. This is one of the ways in which he did so, because normally this would be just like ghosts or skeletons or zombies or something. No, these are like undead that have a purpose, because Tracy hates to have just rattling zombies moving around. But this is exactly the right place for a 4th level party to run into a bunch of zombies. But suddenly, the fact that they're now just minions with a quest and a purpose, it makes it much more weighty and much more impactful than your run-of-the-mill zombie encounter.
My next question was going to be, are they in the D&D monster manual? And it sounds like no.
Well, I mean, they are now.
Yeah, they were in the Dragonlance monster manual as a unique entity. Okay.
Yes, these are definitely a Tracy original that became part of the core idea of D&D, because it's really, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. It's like, why are they restless undead? Well, they're restless undead because they wanted to do something and couldn't do it. That's a standard ghost trope.
Yeah.
But in D&D, for a long time in the 70s and early 80s, the undead were, except for like the highest level liches and whatever, the undead were basically just mindless like minions that were wrenched out of the body.
Zombies and skeletons.
Yeah, wrenched out of the ground by necromancers to do things. But these ones are here because they have a reason.
And Raistlin explains all that.
Yeah.
And then he casts a spell so they can communicate with the minions. I'm guessing the spell is also unique to Dragonlance in the books, because
Well,
is there a talk dead spell,
um,
or was there an original D&D?
yeah, in old D&D, there was like a speak with dead type of spell. I mean, it was more of a cleric spell than a wizard spell, but I'm pretty sure if we looked at the first edition D&D monster, like Player's Handbook, we could find a speak with dead wizard spell. Tracy, of course, wrote the entire like sentence out, which effectively means your voice through me is what the translation of his word is, which is what the spell basically saying is like, channel your voices through me, which is pretty cool. That's actually really neat. And when Race does this, it is really, really cool because it's like, oh crap. He has this, like, all of his companion buddies are sitting there going like, wait, since when can Raceland talk to just random like zombies? What the heck is going on?
Well, and they're all shocked. Like, they're all speechless. Raistlin starts talking, and it's clear to everyone that it's not his voice, right? And it makes me think of, channelers, right? People today who say they can, or,
Yeah.
spiritualists where they usually they go into something and then they shrug, and then their mannerisms are different, right?
Yes.
Because they're channeling. So it seems that happened. And only Tasselhoff, right? Because
he's got no fear.
Yeah, they have no fear. Kinders have no fear. So he just starts happily chatting with
with the random zombies.
Yeah.
It's real funny.
And we learn here that the men swore to protect the land when the cataclysm occurred, and then they fled. And that's the quest. That's why they're minions now, because they have that unfulfilled task. They were supposed to protect the land, and the cataclysm occurred, and instead of doing their duty, they fled. And so they're cursed. So now they protect the land from evil. And this was what was confusing, because it says they protect the land from evil, and they know an evil has arisen, it says. And so it made me think, does that mean that at times Darken Wood people would not see these beings? They would just disappear? Like, are they here because the Draconians are here and there's evil afoot? Or have they always been here, and then this is just verifying what the book has been hinting at so far?
Well, the whole point of this, right? This whole scene is, first off, as we remember from last chapter, these guys are the first humans that they can think of that have come into Darken Wood, right? Like, or the first ones like that are coming here alive, basically. And what happens is that they pledged, like it says, to guard the land. The land was torn apart, and then like random demons and evil things, and like during the Fallen era, bad things come up, and these guys ran because everything was horrible. Right? Everything was bad when the cataclysm hit. And what happens, though, is that they've come again because evil has come again, which is a big part of what we're learning, right? Like the Draconians are running around. There's the hobgoblins, the dragon armies are here. This is definitely setting up this whole notion that the world is out of balance, and all of the things that have come back to restore the balance are trying to do that. So like these undead minions who've been set here to protect this are here. If there was no evil, there would be no need for the minions, right?
Got it.
Like in stasis until they're being called. But they've been called because something has gone very wrong, and something inside of this area needs to be protected, right? And we'll find out what that is very shortly.
Oh, and I guess we missed it, that I forgot to mention it. We're talking about the spectral minions, but there is also a specter here. There is a head ghost guy, right?
Yes. Well, I mean, the head ghosts, they're all spectral minions. They're not like, there's no one person who is not a spectral minion here.
Oh, okay.
They call them specters, but that's just because that's just a synonym for ghost.
And they use the British spelling too. They're very fancy.
That's a D&D spelling. Thank you very much.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah, but the thing is, though, because spectral minions have that same D&D kind of, they've got that like touch that drains your body. They've got all of their powers will do bad things to you if they touch you. Give me 1 second here. Let me see if I can pull that up real quick.
Well, you pull it up. I'll just describe the next thing. So Tasselhoff and Raistlin are talking. Tasselhoff loves to talk, and he basically just tells the specters the entire story so far. And he wants them to know that Tasselhoff is like, well, we're not evil. And he mentions the the blue crystal staff. When he does so, the specter that Raistlin's channeling is standing next to him, gets interested, and he looks closely at Goldmoon, and then he draws his sword. And when he draws it, it starts to glow blue, and then the staff changes from its normal brown wooden staff that it also starts to glow.
So spectral minions are basically like ghostly beings that are more like ghosts in D&D than they are like zombies or skeletons. And ghosts do things like drain your levels or do permanent harm to you. But these ones, because they have a vow or a quest or something that need to be fulfilled, they're cursed basically. They can only do damage to you if they've got their weapons in their hands.
Oh.
But if they hit you with those weapons, then you're going to be in a world of hurt, because it's like they're still ghosts. They're still got this innate magical power. And frankly, if you are the companions and you're running around and a bunch of ghosts are getting close to you, you are not going to get too close enough to find out what their powers are anyways. It's kind of terrifying.
That's a good point, because and that must be common knowledge in this world, because the Spectre goes to touch Raceland and Caramon panics and he tries to strike out at the ghost. And as we all know, if I swing a sword at a ghost, it is only going to hurt me. It is not going to hurt the ghost.
Right. Yeah. So the blade pierces a flickering body, but it was Caramon who screamed in pain and dropped writhing to the ground. Raceland's still hanging out there, unchanged, unmoving. Caramon's like, "Oh, my hand hurts a lot." He looks and he realizes that his sword is rimmed with frost, because these guys, them being cold undead, they have the undead touch of Chill Touch, which is another D&D spell, which is also just like, oh, these guys are just the cold of the grave that has come to like zap you. Raceland's right. It's like, if you don't try to harm them, they're not going to harm you. If you go after them, they're going to just mess you up.
And they don't even have to do anything, right? Like if you strike them or touch them.
Yeah, I mean, if you interact with them, bad things are going to happen to you.
Yeah.
Like, that's just kind of the way it is. But then one of the specters grabs Raceland's wrist. Everybody is horrified. And it's not that it's necessarily common knowledge to not mess with them, but these are all seasoned veterans who have adventured and they do know something about it. But it's also just farmer knowledge. These are ghosts. Don't touch them. They're terrifying.
I mean, this is like knowledge in our world too, right? Like if we just talk about like folklore and stuff.
Yeah.
Don't touch ghosts.
Like, leave them alone. They don't want to, like, you don't want that. You don't want that. But then Raceland comes out and he's like, "We are summoned. We must go in," right? Everybody's like, this doesn't seem like a good idea. But then Raceland starts walking in and the Ghostly King has got like the leader, who's basically this group of spectral minions is like a king and his troop. So the guy in the lead has got a ghostly crown and is definitely a dead king who had promised to, protect this place, and then all of his guardians who are with him.
There's a good picture of him in some versions of the book. The chapter piece, the front piece for the chapter, there's a pretty cool.
I miss when they used to do that. Like, it's so evocative. It's so neat. But yeah, basically he grabs him and he starts walking Raceland deeper into the woods. The heroes are definitely like, "Oh, we're screwed. This is terrifying. Raceland's going to die." And Tanis grabs Caramon and is like, "Look, man, we need to follow them or they will kill us." So Raceland's a mage. He can figure it out. The rest of us are not. So let's kind of just go. And they go forward and they suddenly see this like phantom battle that's happening. This ancient battle that's being fought over and over again from 1,000 million years ago. Suddenly, Raceland just kind of collapses, basically. Others kind of run over to him, and then Raceland opens his eyes and is like, "Man, I need to take a break. That spell totally drained me." Because, in first edition D&D, well, in Dragonlance, the way they use spells and magic to represent the Vancian system of fire and forget, D&D spellcasting, right? You memorize a spell overnight, you cast a spell, you have forgotten until you memorize it again. And they're like, "How do we imply this? How do we indicate this?" And they're like, "Okay, well, when you cast a spell, it drains your energy and it exhausts you and burns the spell out." And that's how we kind of show the limitations of the game system in the book. And I believe that was actually one of the things that was inspired by the player who was playing Raceland, which is like he would cast a spell and then suddenly go weak and be like, "Oh, I can't do it anymore," because, he had a low con score, low strength score.
Interesting.
And it's really one of those super cool things that has deeply, deeply impacted the way the story has been written.
Okay, so they're all in this clearing.
Yeah, Terry Phillips, that's who it was.
Oh, okay.
Terry Phillips is the guy who was the original Raceland in the first D&D, in the first Dragonlance like playtests back in the day. Very cool.
They're in the clearing. They encounter real men this time. There's some humans there, they think. And then they realize that, no, they're not humans, they're centaurs.
Yeah.
And the centaurs now say, you have to follow us.
Yep. Put thy puny weapons down. Ye be surrounded and have not a chance. The centaurs are like the one part of D&D. I mean, the one part of Dragonlance where they do get to go fully ye old British fantasy D&D. It's funny, like when I was doing my reread of the whole saga, I realized that centaurs have a far bigger part in Dragonlance than I remembered. Like they're all over the place all the time.
Huh.
And it just happens that like, oh yeah, they're just here hanging out doing their thing.
Yeah. So they tell them that you have to accompany us and you can just ride us. Don't worry about it. We don't bite. And we're going to take you to someone or something called the Forest Master who lives in the center of Darken Wood. They disarm him first, but Goldmoon gets to keep her staff.
Well, they're not going to try to take that.
Yeah, it's a blessed object. It'll have to be used against the evil that seeks to destroy it. And that chapter ends. And this is my first question when I read this is they meet ghosts, and then the ghosts take them to a place. And then they have to meet centaurs, and then the centaurs take them to a place. And my question has always been, why is there ghosts and centaurs? Why isn't there just one trip?
Well, and Tracy himself is like, man, I wish we had had more chance to go into the centaurs and the ghosts. But the reason that there's two, I mean, is because the centaurs have been living there the whole time. The ghosts only recently have come back because of the evil that has come back. So if you think about it, it's like there's the army outside the walls. Then there's the guard that, like, the king's guards. And that's who the centaurs are.
Okay.
The centaurs are living, breathing creatures. They have tribes. They live in Darken Woods. They were servants of the Forest Master. So they're not like, they have a kind of truce with the spectral minions. The spectral minions are like, we have promised to guard this place. And the centaurs are like, great.
But we live here.
And so they're like, okay, well, all right then. We're just gonna let that be. And so
maybe he was trying to introduce pillars of the world.
Yeah.
We have to introduce centaurs at some point. How can I fit them in here?
Well, I think it's less, it's like they don't even really have a lot of impact, but I think it was just more like, oh, there are centaurs here. Wouldn't that be cool? But it gives them another way to also leave and later on have the centaurs interact with them and stuff. Because like having ghostly minions who are trapped in Darken Wood can't go anywhere, can't do anything. Later on, the centaurs do help them actually go somewhere outside the wood.
Ah, that makes sense. Okay.
But that's the end of the Darken Wood chapter, which leads right into chapter 11, A Forest Master, a peaceful interlude with a beautiful 1980s unicorn kind of Pegasus, like whole vibe right there. Very much a Mercedes Lackey cover waiting to happen.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it reminds me of Trapper Keeper cover, or
it's a very much a Trapper Keeper, or like,
what's that style called now? That retro style that they call now.
Oh God, there's like a name for it.
Yeah, it's like hyper or something like that. I'm gonna have to find it. Drive me crazy. Is it like hyperwave or?
Yeah, hyperwave. Lisa Frank.
Late 80s, early 90s kind of pinks and cyans.
Yeah, it's definitely hyperwave. It's definitely like got this very Lisa Frankish look if it had more of the glitter and things like that. But it's also D&D. Unicorns are D&D.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's not just Lisa Frank, it's
The Last Unicorn. It's like
Frazzetti. It's Frazzetti, right? Like,
yeah, Frank Frazzetti.
Imagine a half-naked woman next to it and a bulging muscled guy right next to that unicorn.
Yeah, a dude with a big old axe and the unicorn in the background. Yeah. But it's like one of my favorite like chapter head pieces. Just that art is gorgeous. But yeah, so they go in, and at the end of the last chapter, so we kind of skimmed over this, but at the end of the last chapter here, the centaurs drop them off in a glade. Everybody's like, nobody here has a weapon. All the centaurs took our stuff. And Goldmoon's like, well, I've still got my staff. And then you hear a deep voice coming through the woods, and it says, and a formidable weapon it is, daughter of the Quishu, a weapon for good intended to combat illness and injury and disease. In times, it will be used as a weapon against the evil creatures who seek to find and banish it from the world. And so the party opens chapter 11 with, hey, who are you? What's going on? Show yourself. And Karamon's like, we won't hurt you. And the voice is like, no, you won't. That's fine. But it's cute you think so. Even Huma, and this is the important part, even Huma laid out his dragonlance at my feet. And Sturm, of course, hearing the magic word, is like, she said Huma, who are you?
And he said Dragonlance.
Yeah. The voice is like, I am the Forest Master. And then it suddenly, the chapter just gets real real drippy 80s girls stuff, right? Like a gasp of awe, gentle as a spring wind, swept the company as they stared before them. Silver moonlight shone brightly on a high rock ledge. Standing on the ledge was a unicorn. She regarded them coolly, her intelligent eyes gleaming with infinite wisdom. Tracy was like, the unicorn's a symbol of good and purity and everything. So he's like, I needed to have a peaceful, idyllic setting, contrast with the fact that this is going to become a meat grinder real quick. And he's like, if we were going to put a unicorn in it, we wanted to put it into a place where it would be properly reverentially represented. Margaret was like, I loved Peter Beagle's The Last Unicorn, so I really wanted to kind of homage that. And this kind of definitely does both of those things.
I was thinking here at this point that Hickman had to come up with a lot of ways of saying wooded clearing in these 3 chapters.
Oh, yeah. We've got glades and glens and like vales and all of the things. Yeah,
He had to come up with a lot of ways to say a wooded clearing.
But yeah, like this description is so over the top. The unicorn's beauty pierced the heart. Goldmoon felt swift tears spring to her eyes as she was forced to close them again against the animal's magnificent radiance. Her fur was the silver of moonlight. Her horn was shining pearl. Her mane like sea foam. The head might have even been sculpted from glistening marble, but no human or even dwarven hand could capture the elegance and grace that lived in the fine lines of the powerful neck and muscular chest. Okay, I get it. You like horses.
Yeah. You're right. It does. You mentioned The Last Unicorn, and the description is so overpowering. It reminds me of this scene in The Last Unicorn when the serving woman sees the unicorn and she's mad because she's like, how dare you? I spent my whole life looking for you, and now when I was beautiful and young and full of dreams, and now you show up and I'm like this, I'm washed up. It's like, it seems any kind of interaction with a unicorn, you're going to be very aware of your flaws because it's a perfect being. It always seems to be.
Well, yeah, because like we see that in the next paragraph, right? Like the unicorn tossed her head and lowered it in grave welcome. The companions, feeling awkward and clumsy and confused, bowed in return. Because who were they next to this gorgeous, like Dionysian, like perfection right here, right? Like, okay, I get it. Then suddenly, like, the unicorn comes down off the big pose ledge where it gets to have like that big shiny moment with the Solinari behind it. And she comes up, and then it feels like everybody has a spell lifted off them. And they suddenly are like awakened, and they're able to look around and be like, oh, whoa, where are we? What's going on? And he's like, wow, this chick is sad. And I'm like, okay, bro. Okay.
She feeds them. She gives water, providing them to clean up. There's this interesting side note that they're sitting on one-legged chairs somehow. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. I always loved that like description because it took me like literal years to figure out what that could possibly mean. It's such a funny little scene, too, where they're like, they sit down and they're all like, I don't understand how to sit on this thing because it's just like a chair that's on a little pedestal, basically. And I was like, what's a one-legged chair look like? Oh, it's basically just an office chair without wheels.
Yeah.
Right? Like, okay, fine. But he sits there and he's like, oh, there's only one leg underneath it. And then Goldmoon, of course, is like the trained politician. And she's like, thank you all for waiting for me. That was so kind of you to give them an escape from looking like idiots, not sitting down.
Karaman sits on the floor. He's a bad guest, right?
Yeah.
Shocker. He has no manners.
And everybody else is like, Karaman's like, oh, I wasn't waiting. I'm not going to sit in those weird chairs. And Sturm is just like elbowing him in the stomach. Like, no, shut up and sit down. But then the cool thing that happens is like these 4 centaurs come with this huge white cloth that's spread on the ground. They lift the cloth to the height of the table, release it, and the cloth remains floating in place like a sturdy, hard table. And I always loved that image of these weird wooden chairs with one leg just kind of balanced outside this mega invisible table. This, of course, is Tracy once again winking and nodding to D&D because that's Tensor's floating disc he's using as a table, which is one of these ancient spells from the ye old days. Tasselhoff's like, wow, what's going on? And he lifts up the thing and he's like, there's nothing underneath there. And the centaurs are laughing and Forest Master's smiling and everybody starts to chill a bit.
They have a philosophical discussion.
Well, yeah, this is the one that when I was a kid totally wigged me out. Like, yeah, so the centaurs lay down like these beautiful cut plates of wood and everything, and they get knives and fork fashioned from the horns of a deer. And I'm like, okay, well, deer shed their horns. That's fine. That's cool. I mean, not horns, antlers. But then suddenly platters of hot roasted meat fill the air with a smoky aroma, and then loaves of bread and fruit. And I'm like, wait, meat? He's got a bunch of like centaurs and a unicorn. What is this meat we're eating here? And Caramon, of course, being the brute that he is, he just starts digging in, eating all this gushing like steam and juice that's pouring from this like weirdly evocative slab of whatever. Everybody else is just kind of staring at him, and he's like, wait, what? This must have been one of yours. I'm sorry. And it's like, oh, that's a great thing to say, buddy. Like, sorry, I'm eating your subject.
Oh, was this a friend of yours? He tastes really good.
And I was like, okay, that's where I was like really kind of put off at first, because as a vegetarian, and this is not my jam. But the Forest Master says one of the most important kind of foreshadowings in the whole series, which is, be at ease, warrior. The deer fulfills its purpose in life by providing sustenance to the hunter, be it wolf or man. We don't mourn the loss of those who die fulfilling their destinies. That is like the keystone line for this whole thing. Because, as the next line says, it seemed to Tanis that the Forest Master's dark eyes went to Sturm as she spoke, and there was a deep sadness in them that filled the half-elf's heart with cold fear. Right there.
I never picked up on that when I first read this. I never...
Oh, yeah. It is subtle as hell.
Where it's just like, oh, if I had been paying attention, or like...
Yeah, if I wasn't 12, I might have gotten it.
Yeah, exactly. But like that is a huge one, right? Like, oh, you don't mourn people who lived the life that they wanted to live and did the work they wanted to do.
Or the destiny that they have fulfilled. That's like a very karma thing right there. That's a very much, you have been given a job on this earth. Your job is to fulfill it to the best of your ability, and we don't feel bad because you have completed the task you were given. Tracy Hickman writes in the annotations here, as I am both a religious man and occasionally enjoy a good steak, this attitude of the hunter, the deer being there to sustain the hunter, this attitude accurately reflects my own beliefs on the subject. Moreover, it foreshadows future events, as the text goes on to show. If you were paying attention, you might be wondering why Sturm is getting all of these weirdo callbacks. But for the rest of us, it's still like chapter 11 in the first book. We have no idea what's coming. No idea. And later on, like after Winter Night, when people come back and they're like, oh my God, they were telling us from day one. And it's like, we did not see it coming at all. And that's, I think, part of what makes, I mean, I guess we'll get to that in a year.
I think that's what makes all good books good books. Is that when you reread them, you pick up things all the time, every time.
Oh, yeah. Especially, I mean, now going back as an adult and rereading these, it's like, oh, I'm reading a lot different things than I did as a kid.
Yeah.
Which is pretty impressive.
Different things are important to you at different times in your life. And so the book speaks to you in different ways. But yeah, that was a big thing where I didn't notice it ever before. And they're like, oh, yeah, I should have seen it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sturm's a tragic hero here.
Oh, yeah. And his tragedy is that he lives in the past and he can't get over the fact that the past is long gone, right? It's funny because like they're sitting there, they're kind of like burping and chilling a bit. And Tanis goes to the Forest Master and continues. He's like, how do we know whether whether the life of any creature has fulfilled its destiny? I've known old people who die bitter, and I've seen young people die before their time, and I don't get it. How do we know that this is important at all? And Forest Master's like, our lives are not measured by what we gain, but by what we give. And I'm like, that's such a good line. Oh, I love that. But then she's also like, okay, chill out, eat your food. We'll have philosophical talk later. And they do. They go back and they, enjoy their food and their waters, and poor Flint is trying to get drunk and there's only water. So GG's, buddy. The party just kind of chills. And then as they're relaxing a bit, they sit there and they start to think about, where are we going next? What are we doing next? And they start telling the Forest Master about the Draconians they've run into. And they're like, these things walk like men, but they look like reptiles. And, they turn to stone and everything. And she's like, I know these creatures. Some of them entered Darken Wood, party of goblins from Haven a week ago. They wore hoods and cloaks, but the centaurs followed them in secret, making sure that they harmed no one before the spectral minions dealt with them. That's what the spectral minions are here to do. The centaurs reported that the creatures called themselves Draconian and spoke of belonging to the Order of Draco.
Subtle.
So there we go right there.
We're dragons who are part of the Order of Dragons.
Yeah, and Raceland's like, Draco? But who are they? What race or species? Gosh, Raceland, could it be that they are Draconians? Of the race of Draconian? She just said so, bro. You'd think he'd be smart, but I think he failed the intelligence check right there. But the Forest Master's like, I don't know. All I can tell you is that they're not of the animal world and they belong to none of the races of Kryn.
Doesn't she say they're unnatural?
Yes. Well, she doesn't say necessarily that they're unnatural, but she says not of the animal world. So that's kind of like
Yeah.
effectively unnatural.
And this is one of the weird things about D&D that's always kind of bothered me. They've gone away from it, kind of like race essentialism.
Mm-hmm.
No race, not animals or a race of Kryn, right? And it's just like, are they really racist? Like, we're all the same race here. Come on. Like,
Well, I mean, like dwarves and elves and stuff like races, but you didn't. I mean, I guess you don't need to use the word race. You could use species, but that's a weird word to say too.
but they all breed with each other, so they're not really races, right? There's half dwarves and half elves, so like,
Everybody can breed with humans because humans were kind of the base template race, but you can't really get an elf dwarf. You can't really get like one of the things where racism does come hard into play is like in Dragonlance, they have one of the most regrettable things, which we'll run into the gully dwarves later.
oh yeah, it's the worst.
And they're like said to be either a mix of humans and dwarves or gnomes and dwarves that went awry. And I'm like, that is some real. I mean, we'll talk about that when we get there. But
It's always an issue that D&D has had, and I think,
yeah,
look, it came from when it came from, which is not a surprise. Like,
yeah, it's from the 70s, from a bunch of born again Christians in the Midwest. They've got their ideas that informed what they were doing at the time.
and D&D's moved away from it, so
It's gotten a lot better.
yeah.
But like it took them decades to be like, oh, the drow are all black-skinned people who live underground and are evil just by default. It took decades and decades for D&D to be like, okay, look, it's okay for orcs to be heroes. It's okay for goblins to not just be in 1980s when we were doing the D&D stuff with Dragonlance and everything, just it was taken as given that like goblins are evil. We kill the goblins, we eliminate their villages, problem solved. It's like they're not a thinking sentient race. They're just vermin out there to be destroyed, which is a horrific thing to think about.
Or they are thinking, but they're evil, right?
Yeah. They're just like cursed and they're unredeemable.
Yeah.
It's like Brian Jakes in the Redwall books is like, yeah, some weasels and stoats are just evil and nothing you do will unevil them. And that whole kind of deterministic, very Calvinist behavior of like, look, either chosen or you're not. Sorry, GG's. But it also is like, if you're a minority playing D&D back in the days, you're like, wait a second. Is that just saying that I'm just by default evil or unredeemable or something?
Especially when so many of these things were just coded, right? Like,
100%.
if it was unintentional, it was still coded, right?
How many Japanese samurai elves do you know, right? Like,
Yeah.
or brutish ogres who were surprisingly like, tribesmen from various indigenous cultures or indigenous.
Or how come goblins always love money and have big noses, right? Like,
Where could that be? Yeah, it's like there's a whole lot of these things that are just very much like D&D has learned and is trying to move past that, but it is slow.
and it's important to acknowledge.
It's important to acknowledge it because
Yeah.
even something I love as much as Dragonlance did awful things in the name of like, just this is what we do, right? Like gully dwarves have no business. I mean, they're one of the most egregious things about this setting. And I'm glad that no other author picked up on that and moved on with it. And the one time we got a Gully Dwarf novel ended up being like my favorite novel ever.
I think I don't like the Gully Dwarves, and we're not there yet, so we're getting a little ahead. But
yeah, we'll save that. But yeah,
I just want to say that I think they were trying to kick against the trend because the Gully Dwarf is a hero.
Oh yeah, like
in the end, she's a hero.
Boo Boo is one of the most important characters in Dragonlance. She is Raceland's conscience, right? Like she's like super, super important and super good. So it's like yes, they do a good job of balancing that. But
the whole setup around it is gross and it didn't have to happen in order to have the great part. And now we can go back to the story we're telling here.
Yes, but now going back to the chapter 11 though. So they're like, okay, the Draconians are coming from the north. Again, we've been hearing about this before. Oh, all those armies we saw, they must be thousands. There's a billion Draconians out there. And later on when we discover how they were made, it makes it even more horrific. Now they're like, where do we go? And they start yelling like, we should go to Solamnia or Haven or Qualanos. And the Forest Master's like, no. All of you sit down. I will tell you where to go. And Rayson's like, what do you mean? What do you know about us? Who do you think you are? Who do you think we are? And she's like, yeah, I was expecting you. A great and shining being. A great and shining being appeared to me in the wilderness this day and told me that one bearing the blue crystal staff would come this night to Darken Wood. The old man, you might suggest. leaving his trek in the Inn of the Last Home to come over here to drop a note to one of his long forgotten friends to say that some guests are coming by. And the spectral minions would let the staff bearer and her companions pass, that they have let no human or elf or dwarf or kender enter Darken Wood since the cataclysm. And so I was to give the bearer of the staff this message. You must fly straight away across the Eastwall Mountains. In 2 days, the staff bearer must be within Zaxaroth. There, if you prove worthy, you shall receive the greatest gift given to the world. Boom, here is the quest. Here is the first 11 chapters in. We have a direction, we have a goal, we have pointed way to do things.
How far away are the Eastwell? Like, we don't have a map here, but so are we due? But give the listeners a sense. This is like an impossible task. Without help, they cannot get from where they are.
Yeah, it would take them like a week's trekking.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, like let me pull out my ye old map of Ancelon here. I actually have multiple maps of Ancelon because I'm just that guy. And there was a fantastic series of books called the Tasloff Map Pouch, made my old friend Sean McDonald, which was a fantastic cartographer. And he made a very great and beautiful map of Kryn and Ancelon, especially, building off of the Tales of the Lance map, which is one of my favorite maps ever. And when you look at like distances and stuff, actually, let me pull out the Dragonlance Atlas here for a second. God, I love this book so much. Karen Wynne-Fonset did the Atlas of Dragonlance, which is one of the most beautiful books I've ever seen. And she did this book, this map book of Middle Earth, which led Trace Hickman be like, yo, can we have you come and do the thing for
Dragonlance?
Kryn? And we ended up with a gigantic and gorgeous atlas, which is still one of the most key, fundamental books in D&D. So let's see here. I can actually look up and get exactly how far this is.
Well, and it's in the opposite direction that they were going, right?
Yeah, they were aiming south, right? Like they've been moving in from Solus. They've been going south into Darken Wood. And then from there, they were planning to go even farther south into Qualinost or Haven or Pax Tarkus. They have to go back to the northeast from where they're at. So it's like doubling back upon where they were. That is a ways away. Darken Wood to Zaxaroth is 30 or 40 miles away, but which is fine if you're got a car. But when you're walking on foot, and you have to cross gigantic mountains and swamps and deserts and an army of draconians to get there. And the Eastwall Mountains, which are not small. Flint is like, are you insane? We'll need to fly to reach Zaxaroth in 2 days. Are you kidding me? Tandis is like, the journey would be long and perilous. We have to go through lands that we know goblins live in and we know that draconians are in. And then we would have to pass through the plains where, the Riverwind and Goldmoon just fled from.
Their lives are forfeit if they enter back.
Yeah. And of course, Caramon, being once again the brute, is like, and what the heck is his greatest gift anywhere? Powerful sword? Chest of steel coins? What's going on? But this is also one of the first times we see that the currency of Ancelon is steel, not gold like the rest of D&D, which is one of the most awkward and annoying things about Dragonlance, that it uses steel currency. And this is because Tracy was like, I wanted steel instead, which is a far more useful metal in this time than gold is, to be the basis of exchange in the world. I wanted to make a point about the ephemeral nature of wealth. But the concept never came across well or work in the game either, for that matter. No, it really didn't, Tracy. Making steel a currency is the dumbest thing you could, because guess what? Steel is not iron. Steel is a forged worked metal. If you're passing steel coinage around and you're like, oh yeah, they can just melt it back into arrowheads or something, you can't do that with steel. That's the whole purpose of steel. It's like, unless they're actually passing around weapons or arrowheads or something, it is real irritating that they use steel. One thing you find out as you're going through all the books is that they can't decide to use gold or steel. So authors will kind of flip back and forth, because before the Cataclysm, gold and silver and copper were the standard currencies. After, everybody's like, no, we only use good cold steel. Gold is worthless. And I'm like, somebody is using all that steel that could be used to make, I don't know, weapons or pots or something, and instead making coins out of them. That's not particularly useful.
Or it's like, I have to melt my sword down to
yeah, right.
This is a sword that I need. No one would make a sword out of steel if steel was the currency. It would be made out of copper or something else, right? But,
right, because I would kill you and take your sword.
Yeah,
Like, if I'm swinging my wealth around and I like slam my steelhead axe into a tree and my axe breaks, suddenly I'm out like thousands of dollars. That sounds absolutely ridiculous. The thing is, though, they use that wording "greatest gift," which we're going to come back to because that sure is Mormon, isn't it, John?
Something.
But
It's very something.
yeah,
I'll have to do some extra reading, not just in the book. When we
but yeah, go find yourself a copy of the Pearl of Great Price.
oh, I have a copy. So, but
Yeah, as any good Dragonlance fan.
the forest master says, "Look, I can get you there in 2 days, but will you accept my help? Will you let me help you?"
Yeah, will you go? And Sturm is like, well, the stag brought us here. We really should be going to help the knights and stuff, right? They all sit there and they're just talking. Eventually, they sit and Raceland and Tannis sit and have a chat. They're also like, okay, well, what do we do? What is Zaxxroth? Should we go there? Raceland's like, well, there was a temple there once, a temple to the ancient gods, and it was destroyed during the cataclysm and the people fled. I didn't know it was still around. Tannis is like, what do you see, man? You looked far away, but what do you see? And Raceland's like, dude, I'm just a wizard. I'm not a seer. I'm not a fortune teller. I don't know what you're talking about. And Tannis, of course, doesn't buy it. He's like, I've known you a long time. And I know that we haven't met in a handful of minutes, but not that long. You don't have the gift of foresight, but you were thinking, not scrying. And you came up with some answers, and I want those answers. Raceland, yeah, I get it. You think I'm a weirdo and you hate me, but I am smarter than all of you, and I'm going to prove it because, like, he is definitely proto edgelord over here. He is definitely the kid who sits in the back and listens to metal and wears a trench coat, and it's like, yeah. And I'm like, oh.
One day I'll show all of them that I'm better than them, and they'll see it. They'll recognize and be sorry they were mean to me.
Yeah, and it's like, as a kid, this was so relatable.
Yes, it's very relatable.
Right, like everybody who's reading D&D and playing D&D and reading Dragonlance stuff in the 80s was a nerd back when being a nerd was a bad thing. Back when we were getting our tuckuses whooped. So having this guy who is basically this wizard who's like, look, I get it, you guys are all pretty jock, but I'm going to show all of you, and he ends up being like the coolest dude on the world. It really resonated very strongly. However, adult me is like, oh my God, this guy needs a hug.
This is not healthy.
This is not healthy. This is one of the things I think I like the most about Dragonlance that took me a long time to get into is that, like, you look at Tannis, and Tannis is torn by his cultures and his, like, relationships, and he's in an unhealthy series of relationships in life as well. Karaman is in this ridiculous codependent relationship with his brother, and Raceland's got this complete egomaniacal, like, just psychosis, this whole, like, bitter jealousy that eats him in the end. And the fact that none of these guys get their triumph is one of the things that I was always bitter about as a kid. But as an adult, I'm like, oh, these guys were not meant to be our examples. These guys were meant to be our, like, these were like meant to be,
They're warnings.
Right? Like even Sturm, who is like following the exact things of his culture, follows a code to the letter, lives his life exactly the way, stuck in time. And he's just like brought down by the fact that he refuses to change. And all of these people, they show growth, but we, the reader, are also like, the growth that you are showing is not the growth you need to be showing. You need to be leaving this behind and becoming a better person. And we learned that through the series. And I think that there's a subtlety that Margaret Weiss writes here that it took me a very long time to really appreciate. But once I did, I was like, damn, this is very powerful.
There's a toxicity
Yes.
in this kind of male ego. Because Raceland, through 6 books, if not more, complains that he's all alone and everyone hates him. But he's surrounded by these people who have been there his entire life supporting him.
Yeah.
And it's like same with Tannis and Flint. Like Flint says he hates Tasselhoff, but like they love each other.
They're best friends.
Best friends. And like none of them can even just come out and say, like, Raceland owes all these people his lives over and over, and they owe him their lives over and over. But no one, they go around acting as if they have nothing and no one in their lives. Like they want this family that rejected them, or this idea or this group that rejected them. And they don't recognize the family that they have made right here until later. And it's just like, it's so true for so many people that like we want this family that we think we have, and we ignore the family that we have made. Often we've made ourselves, and we don't even recognize that we've, like, with people who love us, we've made a family, but we don't see it. And like, that's Raceland and Tannis and Sturm and Karaman and all of them until later when they're like, oh, we are a family.
Yeah. And I think that's just one of those, like, it's such a powerful moment there.
Yeah.
because it's really like these guys don't realize. I mean, the whole thing of the story when you're reading this is that these people, where do they fail? When they try to go solo. They fall apart when they try to do things without the help of their people. And I think this is like Tracy and Margaret's subtle way of saying, hey, you know what? You aren't alone. These people around you who do care about you, who are with you, are like, this is your family. Even if your real family has failed you, these people are your family. I don't know. It's a very powerful message. Like,
Yeah.
hey, guess what? We're better because we're the companions. We're not the dudes who travel in the same direction, right? Like,
Well, and I missed it the entire first time.
oh yeah,
Probably the first 3 times I read it. Like I also wanted, like, when does Tanis get his parade, right? Like,
yeah, right. But
but it's interesting because this is the second time Raceland and Tanis have stepped off and had a conversation to the side
yes,
so far in the book. And this time they acknowledges it, right? The party, the rest of the crew companions are sitting there and they're like, oh, this is just like old times. And one of them's like, what do you think the two of them talk about when they're over there by themselves?
yeah, it's funny. It's like Tanis is like, wonder what they talk about, and it's like every time he tries to snoop, Tanis catches him and shows him away. And he's like, why can't they discuss it with us? And Sturm is like, because we'd probably rip Raceland's heart out if we did. It's like, I don't care what you say, Caramon. Your brother has got a dark side. Tanis has seen it. He can deal with it, but I can't. And Caramon's like, doesn't say nothing because he knows he's got problems with his brother stemming back to the test, stemming back to the relationship. It'll come in later. Tanis, though, Tanis has been around for a very long time. He's been alive for the entirety of these brothers' lives, and he's basically grown up raising these two. He knows what Raceland's capable of. He knows what Raceland does and thinks, and he also realized, like, no matter what Raceland says about, look, I'm the weirdo loner, Tanis is like, no, I value you because you've got insight that these people don't. I trust you. That's what he's telling Raceland here is like, even though you think we're all weirdos, I trust you. So please do me a favor and tell me what you're thinking so that we can figure out what we're doing.
And he's being a good leader when he's using the resources that he has available to him.
Yeah.
And most of the time, the rest of them just give him what he wants, right? He doesn't need to do this. But Raceland won't say what he's thinking in front of everyone else. It's part of him being edgelordy and mysterious.
Oh, yeah. He's trying to be like all super cool.
And wanting to appear better than everyone. So Tanis recognizes that, and he's not going to let it get in the way of being a good leader.
Yeah, he understands how to use the tools he's got.
Yeah, exactly.
He's like, okay, look, I get it. Race needs opposed to. Everybody else needs opposed. Let me give him his platform. I will still get my information one way or the other.
So Raceland rants about how he's better than everyone, and Tanis just lets him do it. He says, I believe this army will overrun all of Kryn. The Queen of Darkness has returned, and she wishes to conquer and enslave us all. And then he says, we don't have a choice, right? We have to go to Zak Sorath. Is that how you say it?
Zak Sorath.
Zak Sorath, as soon as possible. And Tanis goes, I wonder if we were chosen. And Raceland says, yeah. No duh. And he says he learned it in his trials.
Yep, he learned it in the Towers of Sorcery.
And that goes to what you were saying, how Tanis says, I know you know something. And then Tanis asks why. Let me see if I can find the last line, because it's really good, where Raceland says,
yeah, so Tanis is like, but why? We aren't the stuff of heroes. I mean, well, maybe Sturm. And Raceland's like, but who chose us? And for what purpose? Consider that, Tanis Half-Elven.
And the chapter ends there. And so chapter 12 will be Winged Sleep, Smoke in the East, Dark Memories. And we'll take that up next episode. Why don't you tell us what you do, Shivam?
Yeah, so you can find me at Electrotal on Twitter, or you can find my podcast about Magic the Gathering called Casual Magic every Tuesday on whatever place you get this podcast, and also at Cool Stuff Inc.
And you can find me at False Logic on Twitter, and that's pretty much where I live online these days.
Pretty much, right? Like as long as we've got a home on Twitter, we're still there. But yeah, I hope you guys have all been enjoying this trek through Dragonlance with us, especially now that there's new Dragonlance novels in the offing, new Dragonlance gaming in the offing. It's a great time to revisit our favorite classic tales. So thank you so much for joining us on this trek through the original Chronicles of Dragonlance.
We'll see you next time on the Chronicles of Dragonlance podcast.